let's say eminent domain, right? Government owns certain parts of the desert. Like in the Clive and Bundy thing, right? You remember when when that happened? Like, how can the government own something when it's not even? They're not only just leaving it alone and not doing anything useful. They're like detonating nuclear weapons out there.
Yeah.
So it's like so far in the other direction, yet they claim ownership.
Well, right, and there is no government. There's just men and women forcing us to give the money.
Yeah.
The example that you gave is a good one, but it still has the same dilemma in that it depends on the scale.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's exactly what, for example, the British government through their capitalist partners, of course. Mm-hmm. And I'm not necessarily anti-capitalist. I don't like the force part of it, because when you look at what the British Empire did, was going and taking those natural resources from an area and controlling the people and enslaving them. And it's the scale that you're talking about, and it's that scale that I think is so fuzzy and really makes it difficult to have hard lines. This is property, this is not, and it's just too. It's not an answer that I have yet. It just seems to be the more decentralized everything is, the smaller in scale things are, the more plausible, more manageable it is, and it seems to be the less violence that has to be. But once you start into a large scale thing like a forest, you get a group of people claim they own the forest. I wish I had the answer, but
and also this argument, or this, I guess, debate that we're having about property, the intricacies of property, is similar to an anarchist debating with a minarchist, which is kind of it doesn't make so much progress, because both of us want less government. We want absolute nothing, but they want maybe like 95% less, which even that is still so unrealistic that to argue that last 5% to me is how you say, unproductive. So I would rather us focus on the more difficult mission, which is right now the mission at hand, right, which is the myth of authority and just abolishing people's belief in rulers. That some people have a right to steal other people's property and give it to other people who have not earned that property.
We actually had that happen in court. I wrote up a cross-examination for an IRS expert witness, and we bring that out. And he said, look, is it immoral to force people to give you money? Well, yeah. Isn't that what you do every day at the IRS? Well, and she makes excuses, and I said, well, okay, we'll get back to that in this moment, because you're on the job and it's the law. We'll get to that. So, would you do it in your private life? Mm-hmm. And you start breaking down those contradictions in their head. If it's wrong to force people to give you money, it's always wrong. Mm-hmm. And what they'll do is they'll say, like I think you mentioned earlier about, well, you got the roads, and the roads is the big one. That doesn't change the immoral act. Exactly. It doesn't matter if I rob from Peter to give to Paul, and Paul really needed it. It's still considered morally wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, talking about the IRS, because I'm an acupuncturist, right? So I used to work in a car accident clinic, and I had an IRS agent working there one time, and that was when I really was getting into this stuff, towards the end. And oh my God, I had to restrain myself from saying anything inflammatory to him. But he would come in. I'd say, how's your day? He's like, oh, I had a rough day at work. and in my mind, I'm thinking, how can you think of a government? See, this is the confusion, I think, where it comes from, is people think of these positions in government as jobs. Like, to me, a job is something that actually produces value for society, right? Increases wealth, makes us all, increases standard of living, right? Whereas, government, and also, by the way, is also only exists because there's a demand for it to exist. Whereas government jobs, subtract wealth from society, lower the standard of living, and it only exists through force, right? There's absolutely no demand for it to exist, other than, I guess, the belief that in people of, the myth of authority, and the belief that it should exist, I guess, But Yeah, it's just sad, because then people say, well, what if we get rid of the government? What are all these people with these jobs going to do? You get that argument?
I said, well, let's take a look at that. There'll be an extra few $1 trillion
Yeah, exactly.
available, and there won't be nearly the restrictions that you have in doing something on a voluntary basis that people are willing to voluntarily pay for. So that I don't get too often. The biggest one is, what about the roads?
Oh, yeah.
Would you rather have roads never worked on again or continuous genocide? What? And this is why I wrote this. I wrote this down just today, and I think this is going to be a pretty good way to reach people, because generally what I'll do is this: look, if I was to do things like the government types, and I ask government agents this all the time, and it really pisses them off. It's a simple question: if I did things in the same manner as you guys, and I forced people to give me money, would you consider me a criminal? Yeah. Do you see? And most of them they know where I'm going, so you see the issue here. But I think for some people, it'd be softer to just ask them, do you have any principles worth standing up for? And what I get to is it wrong to attack people? Is it wrong to initiate force? Do you want people to initiate force and threats of force against you? Well, no, of course not. Great, we got a great starting point there. Are there any exceptions to that? Is it ever acceptable to initiate violence or threats of violence against them? Oh, no. Mm-hmm. How does government get money?
Exactly.
And so now they can start to resolve the contradictions in their own head, just like I did, and I'm sure you did. I mean, I think that we all come down to being anarchists because we couldn't resolve the contradictions in our head.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to help people do. Everybody already is an anarchist. Everybody, whether they want to admit it or not, because they don't want to be attacked. Mm. So their principle is, I don't want to be attacked. Well, neither do we.
Yeah, I firmly believe that we were all born as anarchists, and that we were slowly indoctrinated first through statist, authoritarian, parental upbringing, and then to solidify that in the government schools, right? That authority always knows best. You don't solve problems on your own. Always appeal to authority, and that's that's why it's so important. And kids, I think, exhibit this when they say simple phrases like that's not fair, or this is mine, or you said so. And to me that implies like understanding of contract, verbal contract anyway, right? And
agreement.
Yeah, agreements.
Respect.
What do you call that? Like just equal. I guess like the golden rule. You don't want anybody to do things that you would not like done to you, right?
Right.
So, although I guess kids when they're too young, they have to learn that one. I guess my 4-year-old sometimes, he goes on my 2-year-old, but eventually, they understand that. They learn that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it's just simple. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. One of the things that I notice about my own children, and that really helped me, get back to that, because you sort of lose this attitude, this kind of view towards life, is when you're a child, you're very inquisitive. You're always asking questions, and I think we're curious about the world in which we live in. Mm-hmm. And every great advancement usually comes from asking questions. How do things work? How can I make this work? Why is this phenomenon doing this? How can I use this to help better? And I think it's bred out of us that when we go to school, it's all about just memorizing stuff. It's not about critically thinking. It's to be taught to be a skeptic and have an open mind, and just let's collect as much data as we can before we start making conclusions, people. And that's bred out of us because they don't want. Look, the people that force us into their schools, the people who force us to give them money, don't want their victims being inquisitorial and asking questions, because it's too easy, and I've proven it thousands and thousands of times. It is too easy to to show the gun in the room and that they are not who they say they are. They're just people forcing us to give the money. And I have requested people come on the show and show me where I'm wrong. Show me a gap in my logic. Where am I getting my facts wrong? That government is men and women forcing us to give us money. That's what it is. Now, you come up with an argument. If you can't show where my facts are incorrect, you damn well better come up with an argument to justify it. Mm-hmm. And that's where they can't do it. That's where you start getting into the logical fallacies.
So how many people have actually come on your show and challenged you?
I've had a number of people actually challenge me, and I welcome them to come on. And the few that actually have come on have ended the show apologizing for saying XYZ, that my facts are right. This is not about me being right. This is what what does the data or what does the evidence tell us? Mm-hmm. And we've always parted as friends. Mm-hmm. I have critics that think that I'm an idiot, I'm a wacko, I'm taking advantage of people, gullible people, and that none of my arguments have ever any merit whatsoever. So, well, why don't you come on the show? If my argument that there's no evidence proving the laws apply, come on the show and provide the evidence. Yeah. We have a standing $5,000 challenge, and my friend Paul is the backing.
Wow.
That nobody will